Tina Turner's resurrection appeared to be within reach one day in London's Kensington district in 1983. The previous decade had been one of earth-shattering triumphs, personal nightmares, varying degrees of mortification, and now, a chance at redemption. But, as musician and producer Martyn Ware quickly discovered, Turner's past was never in the rearview mirror, and on that day, it was staring her down. Turner had sung on an edgy, pulsating remake of The Temptations' hit Ball of Confusion the previous year, and now Ware, who had co-helmed that track, co-founded the Human League, and was a member of Heaven 17, was meeting with her to plan out another collaboration. When Ware arrived at Turner's hotel, which he describes as a beautiful kind of mansion, he noticed security guards outside. To Ware's surprise, he was told that Turner's ex-husband, Ike, who had previously served 30 days for drug possession and was not afraid to shoot at the newspaper delivery guy or threaten his wife's life, was in town and calling. He was apparently attempting to scale the building walls to demand money from Tina. It was still going on, Ware explains. And I thought, Tina has to deal with this on a daily basis. Everything she did was done with grace, poise, and good humor. She had to be hurting underneath it all. Turner and Ware eventually decided to cover Al Green's Let Us Stay Together. The song would be the first step toward Turner's 1984 album Private Dancer, which would re-establish Turner as a musical force and a public symbol for overcoming crushing personal adversity. I think people go to see her not necessarily for the songs, they go to see her for what she represents, her friend David Bowie would later say. The baggage of her past travels with her, and they are going to see someone who has risen from the ashes like a phoenix from the ashes. She has certainly been through far more than many of us have. Turner's comeback should have been a piece of cake given how much she was embraced by old fans, the MTV generation, and the industry, the holy trinity in the music business at the time. Few pop stars were more beloved after the public learned about her relationship with Ike through a People interview in 1981. But her ex-husband's unexpected reappearance on an otherwise productive day in England would be far from the only stumbling block in one of pop's most unexpected returns. Turner's second act was never guaranteed, even with the world cheering her on. It could have been derailed at any time by ageism, skeptics who questioned whether she could make it on her own, music never released in her home country, and at least one racist music executive. She almost tripped herself up by refusing to revisit the music that had made her a star in the first place, triggered in part by memories of life with Ike. Only a series of fortunate events, combined with her unwavering faith in herself, could save her. By the beginning of the 80s, it was difficult to see Tina Turner having a remotely bright future. She would have been a star for many years, fronting a band with Ike that raced through the pop landscape like a locomotive. Ann Bullock had wanted to be a nurse, but after meeting Ike and his band, the Kings of Rhythm, in a street Lewis nightclub, she was reborn, eventually renamed Tina Turner by her soon-to-be husband. Before crossing over to the rock world, the two had a handful of R&B hits, thanks in part to opening for the Rolling Stones and remaking rock hits like Proud Mary and Honky Tonk Women in their own brassy soul revival style. Ike was the guitarist, bandleader, and boss, but all eyes were on his wife, who had the throaty, sensual delivery of a great gospel or blues singer, and uninhibited dance moves unlike anything seen in pop. Her cover of Otis Redding's I Have Been Loving You Too Long, in which she stroked her microphone, was undeniably erotic, and Turner was arguably the first major black female rock star. Few knew about the horrors of her life offstage and in the studios with her abusive and womanizing husband at the time. Ike was beating me with phones, shoes, and hangers, she wrote in her debut memoir, Ike Tina. It was not just slapping anymore, it was choking me, punching me. He punched her so hard right before a show that he broke her jaw, but she still had to go on stage and sing. She left him in 1976 at the age of 36 and found herself raising 4 children while drowning in debt. She worked on cheesy TV variety shows and in Vegas, where she resorted to covers of dance hits like Disco Inferno. During one dinnertime show, she accidentally dropped her mic into a customer's steak. Suddenly, the booking agents did not think I could work without Ike, she explained. It felt like starting over. Turner's relaunch began just as the 1980s began, and it nearly failed in the first of many such instances. R&B and disco were out, and new wave was in, leaving Turner musically befuddled once more. In 1980, Roger Davies, a young Australian manager, decided to attend one of her regular performances, 2 shows a night at the Fairmont Hotel's Venetian Room in San Francisco. Davies was initially put off by the show's garishness, which included Turner in gaudy Bob Mackie gowns, 4 backup dancers, and covers of standards like Fever. Turner's opening night performance was geared to the visiting conventioneer crowd, according to the Oakland Tribune. Fortunately for Turner, Davies stayed for the more wild second set. In I, Tina, he recalled people standing on tables. The chandeliers trembled. Davies soon fired 2 of her dancers and hired new musicians, with Turner's approval. She wanted to rock, says one of the newcomers, drummer Jack Bruno. She would bring other tunes and put her stamp on them, which usually meant faster tempos. That was her signature move, making songs her own. To save money, the new musicians wore matching black karate suits, rather than the more expensive tuxedos of the previous lineup. Turner stated in 1981, "Ike was the musician, bandleader, director, and business manager. That is now my responsibility. I want to get back into the rock of it," she told Rolling Stone at the time. Turner was still unsigned and yearned to be on par with the biggest bands of the time. She wanted to be up there with the Stones, be mainstream, and have her own hits, says Ann Berenger, one of her backup dancers and singers at the time, and with Davies' help, that goal began to take shape. Rod Stewart invited her to attend his show on Saturday. Turner still packed her set with Ike-era singles like Proud Mary and River Deep, Mountain High in the early days of her rebirth. But she frequently began her sets with a new song, her own version of Stewart's sleazy deep-cut Foolish Behavior, renamed Kill His Wife. "Why I want to kill my wife. I have this urge to take her life, been planning for years to get rid of her, not divorce. I really do mean to kill her," the lyrics said. During the instrumental break, Turner upped the ante by grabbing a startling prop, a noose, which she twirled around like a lasso. Turner appeared to be attempting something theatrical, according to Bruno. "I am not sure what her thought process was, but she enjoyed the theatrics," he says. The audience politely applauded, but they had no idea what to think. Few knew what Turner was dealing with after she left Ike. Death threats that made her so afraid for her life that she briefly carried A-38 and hired bodyguards. Ike arrived with an entourage during one of her sets at the Fairmont. "She got really nervous," Berenger says, "but she was a professional and pretended everything was fine." Turner never mentioned the noose, and it did not last long on her show. But, disturbing imagery aside, Turner's rage and defiance were the first indications of how she would become a heroine to women who had experienced domestic violence and were looking for a way to survive and reset their lives. Beginning with Davies, Turner's happy accident return continued with James Brown, who stayed for her Fairmont show. British Electric Foundation, a collaboration between Ware and Ian Craig Marsh, was working on a collection of synthesized covers of songs from the 1960s and 1970s in 1982. Brown had been hired by the duo to front their remake of Ball of Confusion. Negotiations with Brown, however, allegedly fell through at the last minute, leaving the producers with only a backing track and no singer. Fortunately for Turner, the career-saving coincidences continued. Ware was lamenting the fate of his project in the offices of Virgin Records in London when Ken Barry, one of the label's founders, walked by and overheard his plight. Barry mentioned his friend Tina Turner and wondered if she would be available. Ware had just returned from seeing her play in London and was reminded of the strength of her voice and persona. "Her talent and energy blew me away," he says. "And I thought to myself, well, if anyone can do it, Tina can." When Ware offered Turner and Davies plane tickets to London, they accepted, but her comeback almost did not happen. Davies later recalled in Tina that she freaked out when she learned the song in question was Ball of Confusion. She was terrified of being relegated to a genre like oldies or R&B. According to Ware, Turner had previously rehearsed the song, but may have been put off by the fact that the band consisted of a bank of synthesizers. Turner eventually agreed to the idea, recording the vocal in one day. It was unclear whether the song and era brought back memories of Ike, but she seemed ready to move on. "It was quite difficult to sing that song. It sounds like there is more than one voice on it," Turner later told Ware. "And I am saying to Tina, it is the Temptations," he recalls. "Who are they?" she asked. "My theory is that she abandoned soul music. It is partly because of Ike and partly because she felt more connected to the world of rock and roll."